Was there anything then in this whole idea of being recorded
Mm.
and talking about yourself today now,
Yep.
that you felt you had to get on tape, that you just like, oh
Oh.
yeah, I got to make sure we talk about this? Was there like a checklist for you
Yeah.
of different ideas?
Not really.
No.
I am trusting that I'll have everything down on video at some point somewhere by the time I shuffle off this mortal coil. My stokedness for this video, because it wasn't like super my idea
Who's
to
that?
do. It's
Was
kind of more my mom's idea.
Okay.
I had impromptu done an interview with someone, and my mom was like, let's do a proper one. This is my memory. And I was like, fuck yeah. It was very, very, like, we're both super into it, but I think it was her that ran with, like, a real professional interview. I might be wrong. My brain's a little bit like a kitten these days. Which reminds me, I got to fucking dose myself. Which I can do quite self-reliantly. And will do comfortably because this is an open book. Jammy lifestyle right now.
What do you need?
Alcohol swab.
Right. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
I know where they are.
Yep. So, oh, here. While you're doing that, pass me that painting, and I'll talk about it. Pass the time. Danke. Yep. I don't know how the glare is on this. I don't know how this looks. I would... Can you...
It looks like it's supposed to on this one.
Okay, so you're kind of seeing it. It has a somewhat long title, which I've not memorized. But it is essentially this here, leaping with the sword, is King Arthur. Skewering Arthur with the lance is Mordred. This was painted in 1917.
No shit.
Yes.
Wow.
So this is late First World War aesthetic Camelot legend. And as you can see, the ground is but charnel. Before I gave up, before I puked out that poop, that's what my life felt like. That's what my life felt like for most of May and into June. Just desperate battle in a field of corpses. Every day picking up my sword and leaping at Mordred once more. Until the skewer. In that moment, I accepted that I was dead. That is how it must be put. 2 weeks ago, I accepted that I am dead. And that to quote the poet, has made all the difference. War's been a thing for me in my life. I am still understanding it. I've always had a tremendous affinity for war. War documentaries, war memoirs are my favorite thing to read. But I ration myself because I know it ain't good for my soul. And for a while, it was real soulless. When my business was failing, I read With the Old Breed, which is a lot of what the Pacific was based on. Something about people in those circumstances. So this is Hydromorph. It's an opiate painkiller. Dilaudid, the trade name. And I take currently 3 milligrams of it every 3 hours, subcutaneously.
Does this mean you're going to get funnier in the next 10 minutes?
Yes.
Awesome.
This does mean that I'm going to get funnier in the next 10 minutes. But I also might start getting sleepy. To a large extent because I am always on opiates. My brain is a little bit like a kitten. To wit. Well, actually, no, my brain is like a kitten for the first to wit. To woo. Because of how I find myself in life. Something that I do want to share, tick in the box of the interview, is there is constant opportunity for depth, meaning, connection, richness in life. Every moment we can say something that cuts through the autopilot and bam, touch somebody, touch their mind, touch their heart. I have this really great line, which is, I'm dying of cancer. You would not believe the fucking conversations that come from me answering, how's it going, with I'm dying of cancer.
That's the question that I just asked in my head, which is why I'm laughing.
Yep.
And so do you say, I'm dying with cancer,
I'm dying
how are
of
you?
Yeah.
Do you follow up?
Et tu? How's by you? No. No. The perfunctory reciprocity tends not to get a lot of space made for it after that. It's so cool, man. So that's my great line, but this is the trick I always used to use, which is instead of asking, whatever, the barista, how are you? Say, how's your day going? How's your day going? That cuts through the autopilot. A little pro tip. I love the practice of asking people how their day is going. It's still very mundane. They can still say, oh, good, if they don't want to engage. But it's an opening. You find your own, right? But it invites conversation. It invites uniqueness. People can give context. People can tell a story. Whatever. It's usually results in at least a nice little conversation. Some good smiles. It's an example of how, in every moment, blah, 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 every moment, but in a surprising number of circumstances, we can just like fucking smell the proverbial roses. And this is all just like because I'm looking at so many of the things I do as this might be the last time I do this. And this is for sure one of the last times I do this. I'm going to have it be as much it as I can. Me be as present as I can. What I'm drinking for coffee is I'm deemed it Aaron's deathbed espresso. And I tell the baristas that's why I call it that. And sometimes I tell them why. I just stumbled over my words. I blame the drugs. I got a free coffee out of it. So anyways, it's just a single shot of espresso with a teaspoon of honey. Drink it so slowly that it does not hit your stomach. Tiny, tiny sips that get absorbed by the time they're at the bottom of your throat. Shockingly good, my mom described it as, or something startlingly excellent, something like that. My mom knows her coffee. It is weird, it's quite sweet, but that's how I'm doing coffee. I just want like the most concentrated epitome of coffee. There it is. So I'm doing a lot of this for just like life, like hugging people. I'm like really fucking hugging people. And I will reflect. This is part of my way of being that I'm doing things, is I'm constantly reflecting because I don't give a fuck. So using tact, but also non-attachment to people being comfortable, I will reflect what I feel when I hug someone. Being like, oh, you feel buzzy yet grounded today. Or just whatever. Or like, you feel so strong right now. Or like, and this is sometimes not a compliment. I just feel like, wow, you know, feels like things are heavy right now. Whatever. You feel shaky and not grounded. Or if I feel these things, I will like adjust my own body to like see if I can support what embodiment is happening with this person. You know, embodiment is so huge. And that's been something I've been really with as well, is how I'm being in my body. And this is one of the things. When I was trying, before I gave up, before I took myself out of my suffering, before I was taken out of my suffering by surrendering to the fact that I'm imminently dying, I was so tense, especially in my abdomen. And I knew that was part of it. That was part of why my guts were blocked up, is because just the musculature and the fascia were just like, and I could work super hard, do my qigong, everything, and like get things to release, and it would often work. Stool and gas would start flowing. Okay. We made it through today. Let's take some fucking meal replacement drink. But when I let go, everything started to let go. And for the next few days especially, I just felt my body, segment by segment and through layers, just be like, ah. Breathing could come, posture could come. My breathing and posture are like great now. And it's so much yield and overcome. The classic Taoist saying, yield and overcome. By giving up, my body started coming into the place of balance. By giving up. Wu Wei. Without striving. One of the central tenets of Taoism. I mean, without striving is just a translation because Chinese is so grammatically different, but without striving is how I like it. It's also called effortless action. And it's a mindset. This is an interesting part. Psychologically, for my work to have been sustainable, I developed non-attachment to outcome with my patients. Back when I was starting out, the success or failure of treatment, I saw it as coming from me. It was natural. And that feels really good when people have breakthroughs and you go around thinking you're Superman who heals people. Aren't you just the fucking best? And it is some of the, I remember some of the elation and just laughing with joy at how fucking good at medicine I was. And also being so happy for what had happened that was in there. Huge part of it was joy for this person and how much less suffering they had in their life / how much happiness they were experiencing. But there was big 自豪 in there. And that way madness lies. Because what if your treatment doesn't work? And of course some won't. Then you feel like shit, and then you start being false.
False how?
Pretending things are better than they are. For both people, and emphasizing symptomatic relief and disempowering your patient in their own journey. It was absolutely vital for me to care and to do my best. But the only thing I did my best at was bringing the medicine. They meet the medicine. Something happens. Or doesn't. I am not a healer. The only person I ever heal is myself. I've never healed another human being. And if you meet someone who seems to be experienced and calls themselves a healer, go the other direction. This is my advice. Someone who's just starting out calls themselves a healer. They may not have learned. They may not have encountered the teaching or come to it that they can't be the person who does the healing. Some people don't know the teaching at all. They speak without appreciation of the nuance that is innocent, but leaves itself open neurolinguistically. So if someone has been in the business a long time and calls themselves a healer, they've encountered this teaching. They think of themselves as a healer. Something fucked up's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
When I hear you say the word medicine and healer,
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware of how, for lack of a better word, Western ears would hear that. Medicine is the kind of stuff that you go to the drugstore to pick up. But that's not the medicine you're talking about, as you being the medicine, or you're talking about the person who's aware of some kind of health modality or sort of health practice or sort of herbal preparation or that sort of thing, and just presenting that to people, right?
Yes. Yeah. Even me sticking needles in people is just bringing the medicine.
Right.
They have to meet it. Yeah.
And did you know that when you started studying?
No, which?
That's what you would be, is just the person bringing that as opposed to being it itself? Like, I mean, did your perspective of who you were as a healer change over the time that you studied from when you began to now?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, early on in my career, when I would have great success, I would go dancing around singing REM's I Am Superman, true story. And I can do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And so here you are today in the most graceful of spaces to be able to appreciate that you are not that.
Not that.
And you're still smiling. Damn it. Seriously, I'm just going to keep bringing this up because this is fucking weird for me to have you be, I mean, maybe it's the stuff you just put in your leg, I don't know.
Doesn't hurt. Has a euphoric quality.
Right.
But, you know, it's just a cherry on top.
Right.
No, I am so happy. I have not had such a stretch of happiness. I don't know. Equanimity is the name of the game. And yeah, every day I laugh for joy by myself. Every day I laugh for joy with others. It's a combo of a bunch of things, Anthony. It's like, on the one hand, I am making the most of every opportunity, to go back to the conversation of, like, you know, how's your day been, / I'm dying of cancer, / this, you know, word of advice for people is like, even just how we breathe. Like, what an experience a breath can be. What an experience a meal can be. I'm especially appreciating this because I don't eat anymore. Mediocre food! Jesus, no! This is what I tell to people now. There is one surefire way to add richness and joy and whatever, I don't need more words. And that is eating really good food. Personally, I also love cooking. I think cooking and eating really good food is an end in and of itself, and one of the best things we can do for our soul. Instant option to deepen life. Just eat good fucking food.
Isn't that ironic to you? Doesn't that occur to you as being kind of like, I mean, your guts are...
Yeah, it's tragicomical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
If I could eat right now, like, fuck, man. That would be... That's all I want. That is all I want. I love eating. And if I could eat right now, I wouldn't be dying. If I didn't have this bowel obstruction, I am otherwise in pretty darn good health. The bowel obstruction is the only thing stopping me from carrying on with chemo, because the chemotherapy causes a lot of intestinal distress. And if my bowel is obstructed, like the last time I did chemo, I was like 3 days of incredibly gassy, just weird ass loose stools, barely obstructed at all. But it almost didn't matter because I had just so much tumult in there. So the fear now is because the obstruction has progressed so much that if we went there, we'd get all the gas and shit and all the tumult, but it wouldn't be able to leave. So I would just become swelled up. I would just become swollen up like a balloon and in great pain for no avail. So yeah. But if I could eat, I could go fully into cancer treatment. I'd also be able to take all these supplements to mitigate the side effects, etc., and supplements to address the cancer in other angles. Like, it just, don't need to go into the details of that, but there's lots of just directly anti-cancer things that I could do also if I were orally taking things. Yeah, man.
Have you always thought of food as medicine?
No.
Was it? I mean, this sort of desire that you're talking about right now about food is you right now desiring food. What's your relationship been with it? Considering you've had Crohn's and...
Oh yeah, my relationship. I mean, this is perfect. It's perfect. The number of times growing up and before I changed my neurolinguistics about it was, I would say what so many people can't say. I can't eat wheat, I can't eat dairy, I can't eat sugar. Later, I was like, I hardly ever. Because, A, it's not true. I was certainly able to, and I still can, physically chew up and swallow a piece of bread. I can eat wheat. So, and I also could eat wheat and face the consequences. So even that kind of can't is out. This, I find it actually really important. This is something that I would go on about when I was pontificating, but I would also talk about with my patients a lot. I really encouraged my patients to drop can't language around food and food sensitivities.
And suggest to them what instead? Shouldn't?
No. Should and shouldn't carries this whole moral weight, which is also not accurate. I would encourage them to find what was comfortable. Simply changing can't to don't is huge. I don't eat dairy from I can't eat dairy. So much more empowered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so much springs from that. Or if you want to not, if that isn't 100% true, then just say, I hardly ever touch dairy. Because if don't is, erroneously absolute. I use bigger words when I'm high on opiates, just like the romantic poets.
Are you making some sort of a correlation between their prose and their substance abuse, or?
Yes, absolutely.
There, you heard it here first.
So maybe they were so loquacious just because they were fucking high on opium all the time.
Maybe.
They're like, oh, behind on my quadrasyllabic words this hour, you know. Ooh, that was a pentasyllabic word, quadrasyllabic. Bonsoir.
We're gonna need subtitles on this. You realize that, right?
Please.